Hello everyone. I am going to dictate you the dictation from GDBIST volume number 4. Speed will be around 100 words per minute. So be ready for the dictation. 5 seconds. Start. Now it is a national army. It is an Indian army. It is an Indian navy and the officers are Indian. The sepoys and jawans are Indians. I fail to see as to why we should try to imitate what is prevailing in the best armies in the world. In the US Army, there are officers, they are Americans. There are sepoys who are also Americans. There are regulations about discipline. The honorable member immediately concluded that if there is any remark about discipline, it only applies to our country and that armies do not exist in any other country, that they are not discussing this problem of relationship between the sepoys and the officers in those countries, or that it is a problem peculiar to our country. I beg to submit that it is a narrow view. If you do not want to discuss all these matters and immediately any discussion arises, the honorable member does not let me proceed and immediately on the very first sentence he wants me to cut off my train of argument and reply to his question and discontinue my speech. I submit that it is not possible. I say that now we have an Indian army. What should be the relationship between the officers and sepoys? You see the conditions of service of the sepoys, their food, their living environment, their dress, and their hours of work. Now, probably they are called junior and senior commissioned officers. Anyhow, I have been able to convey that there are three classes. There is commissioned officers, non-commissioned officer, and the sepoys. In these three sections, first take the case of a Jawan. He will probably get rupees 600 and a quota of ration and quarters in barracks. Take the non-commissioned officers. They are fairly educated people, fairly well organized, and they know something about the military activities during a war. Their pay does not go beyond rupees 800. Take the commissioned officers. From a lieutenant, they go up to colonel, brigadier general, etc. The conditions are so different between the two. The life of a Jawan and the life of an officer, and there is no coordination or fellow feeling between them. They live on different planes. The honorable member's experience may be different and he may be an expert on army matters. Take the case of the American army. There, even when it went to Korea or when they were fighting in foreign countries, the difference in food supplied to the officers and the soldiers there was almost insignificant. They were getting more or less the same type of food, the dress, and other things were more or less similar. They discuss amongst themselves the entire process of war and what is going on. They are given radius and are allowed to hear the news to keep abreast of the conditions of war. They fight because they intensely love their country and they feel that they are fighting for a just cause. Anyway, precisely this aspect I would like to bring to the notice of the House. From the explanation given, it was quite clear that the process of acquisition of arms is a very long process and there are cases wherein the representative of the Navy opted for another type of submarines. The representative of the Indian Navy had quite a justifiable reason in opting for that submarine because the HDW submarine belonged to one generation behind than this submarine, which is more suitable to Indian conditions. This was the position of the representative from the Indian Navy. He expressed it in the meeting. If the information with me is correct, in the third meeting of the price negotiating committee, the Navy man was called aside and told that he should not insist that this submarine should be more suitable for our country. So, this has happened. If this has happened, I expect an explanation from the Honorable Minister as to how this has happened, and if this has happened, anyone can question the suspicion and that similar episodes would not have happened whenever the price negotiations are being made, and we know that ultimately the decision will be taken at the highest level. Whatever transpires at the price negotiation committee, the final decision is being taken by the cabinet committee for political affairs. And here comes the political element in the decision. Sir, it is quite natural. I do not want to attribute the responsibility to anyone. But in the Cabinet Committee for Political Affairs, the Prime Minister presides over the meetings and those who are accessible to the Prime Minister can naturally only mention that in the bargain between the various firms, it would be better to select a particular firm. This is where the crux of the matter comes. So, in this background, we do not want to accuse the other side that bona fides cannot be taken seriously. We do not want to say so. We do not want to engage in a competition as to who are more patriotic and who are more concerned about the defense of our country, but to ward off suspicion, to keep up the morale of our defense forces, what we propose is why can't there be a high power committee including parliamentarians who are knowledgeable in these matters? Fortunately, in this house, we have a few such knowledgeable persons, both from the angle of defense and from the angle of finance and accountancy. Why can't a high power committee of experts be constituted to scrutinize and decide on the purchases of arms from abroad, not every purchases, but purchases in which a substantial amount is involved, which can be discussed and decided upon. There is a specific point which we would like to raise, and this will help improve the situation. There need not be any unwarranted suspicion on such matters, and if you cannot believe such a high power committee, we have no other option to believe what you say.